All right, folks, welcome to the Guelph District Multicultural Festival. It is the 35th annual. We're going live. We're kind of working behind the scenes there if you were kind of with us at that point, just preparing. And as you would do as a performer or any festival, it takes a lot of preparation to make a lot of these things happen. I want to thank the behind the scenes people, our tech friends who are making it happen tonight and kind of just pinpointing everything from A to Z in between. So thank you for doing that. We have a great presenter coming up here, and we are doing cocktail hour. If you've never participated in that before, something very new, even better, because it's Friday night, it's the Guelph District Multicultural Festival, and we have the Spring Mills Distillery who will be teaching us and kick it off our Friday nights. Here we go.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tim Crawford. I'm here tonight on behalf of Spring Mill Distillery to present a couple of cocktails and some food pairings for you guys here. We're very happy to be a part of the Multicultural Festival. Really like everything that you guys have done in the past, and we're excited to share some stuff about us. We are a whiskey distillery here at heart, owned by the Sleeman family out in Guelph, Ontario. We are currently producing some other spirits like our gin and our vodka and a couple of specialty liqueurs like the Hascap here, while we're waiting for our whiskeys to age properly. Primarily our focus on our bar here is cocktails. We do some food as well, which tonight we're going to get to as well. Yeah, and other than that, I guess we'll just jump right into it. We are going to start tonight with a gin Hascap mojito. So a little different than a traditional mojito that is traditionally done using rum. We wanted to showcase our products a little bit more, so we developed a recipe using our gin and our Hascap berry liqueur. The Hascap berry, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of a flavor profile in between a blueberry and a raspberry, kind of a combination of the two. The berry itself is full of antioxidants. This is great as a digestif, and it's an excellent product to accent your cocktails with, which is what we are going to be using it for tonight. So we are going to start today with the mojito. This is a muddled cocktail. We are going to start with some nice fresh mint here. And the first thing I'm going to do is spank my mint. The reason that we're going to do this is we want to express the essential oils that are in the mint leaves themselves, and it brings the aroma and the flavors to the forefront of the cocktail. So we're just going to give it a nice slap. I'm going to drop it in my shaker here. Next, I'm going to add 1 lime wedge, quartered. I'm going to add 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice. There we go. There's my jigger. This is freshly squeezed lime juice. It's always the best. Next, I'm going to add 1 full ounce of our gin here. Our gin is a London dry style gin, but we do use a botanical in our gin called a sea buckthorn berry, which makes it a little bit more approachable. It's got a little bit more of a floral citrusy finish rather than just getting kicked in the face with juniper like a lot of the London dry style gins. So it's a more approachable gin, I would say, which works great for this cocktail. So I'm going to do a nice full ounce here. And I'm going to add 1/2 ounce of our Hascap berry liqueur. And normally in a mojito, you use something called a simple syrup, which is traditionally just 1-to-1 hot boiling water and regular granular white sugar. We have actually decided to use maple syrup to sweeten up this cocktail. Sort of the smokiness of the maple syrup just goes really well with the other flavors in there. So I'm going to add 3/4 of an ounce of Canadian maple syrup. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do is muddle all of these flavors together. So in my shaker tin, I've got a nice muddler here. I usually hold it on the end, fingers running down, and you're just going to push and turn. And what we're trying to do is just infuse those essential oils from the mint and some of that nice fresh pulp from the lime wedge in there with the rest of our liquids. Probably want to do this for about 10 to 15 seconds. Next, we are going to add 4 nice square large ice cubes to a highball glass, traditional highball style glass. What we want to do with these is we want to stack them up. Apologize, this is not my traditional ice wafer. There we go.
Sound great.
Now for presentation time. What we're going to do here is a layered version of this cocktail. So what we want is the sugary, heavier stuff. Move it. The sugary, heavier liquors and syrups and things are going to stay in the bottom, and we're going to be able to float our soda on top of it to give it a very beautiful sort of layered effect. Now this is for presentation. You know, once you get the cocktail, you're probably going to want to stir it up a little bit, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's a nice way to impress friends if you're hanging out in the backyard. So I've got my shaker tin. This is called a Hawthorne strainer. Push it forward. We want to keep all of the mint and lime and stuff in there, and we just want the juice. And what I'm trying to do here is aim for the hole in between the glass and the ice. I don't want to get this on the ice if I can help it. Pour it right there. Beautiful. Since this is a presentation forward cocktail, we'll make sure everything's nice and cleaned. Next, we're going to take our soda water, and this is where the trick sort of comes in. We are going to pour this very slowly over the very top ice cube, and the slower you pour, the better this is going to separate. So, aim for our ice cube there, get going, and just very slowly aim for the same spot. You can actually, I always try to dig a hole into my ice cube. It's a good way to know that you're pouring slow enough. Just like that. And before I garnish this, I'll try to hold it up a little bit. So you can see our cocktail now is almost completely crystal clear at the top, and all of that good stuff is in the bottom. So it's a very nice way to present a cocktail like this. We're going to garnish it with some fresh mint. We're not going to spank this mint, but we do want to open it up. So I'm going to take some fresh mint leaves, and I'm just going to bang it on the side of my thumb here and just sort of get those essential oils flowing. We're going to plant that in our cocktail, just like so. I'm going to add a lime wedge to the side of our glass. And we are going to hide our straw with this mint so that when you go in for your first sip, you're going to get those smells and those flavors to go with the cocktail itself. So there we have a layered gin Hascat mojito.
That's amazing. It looks awesome. I put a memo to myself, dig hole, as you were describing how to prepare it. So that looks beautiful. Wow. That's amazing. And just like that. So could you go over the ingredients again, just to recap?
Absolutely. So what we've got in here is we've got 1 ounce of gin. We've got 1/2 ounce of our Hascat berry liqueur. We have 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lime juice. We have 3/4 of an ounce of 100% pure Canadian maple syrup. And then we have approximately 3 mint leaves spanked and opened up, and 1 quartered lime wedge dropped into the bottom. Those are all your main ingredients that you're going to muddle together, and then you're going to finish it off by adding the ice and topping very slowly with soda to once again create this sort of layered effect.
I see. And could that just be any type of soda or a specific soda?
Any sort of club soda will work. Anything that's lower in sugar content than what's in the bottom of your cocktail, generally speaking, will float on top of it if you pour it slowly and correctly. So you can really get creative. You can really use the layering effect for a lot of cocktails. Again, it does make a very nice presentation. You know, imagine you're in a backyard having a barbecue and somebody brings out a couple of these. It looks beautiful. And a cocktail like this is perfect for a hot summer day or patio day, something like that. It's very, very refreshing. And the acidity of the cocktail, actually, the reason that we've paired it with our charcuterie board is because it really cuts through the fats in the meats and in the cheeses. So they actually pair very, very well together. The acidity, the citrusness of the cocktail itself cuts through the fats a little bit better than a lot of other cocktails in the meats and cheeses on a charcuterie platter. So very, very easy sort of light pickings. You know, you can sort of see our board here. We've got a couple of different kinds. It's a summer sausage. We've got some pepperettes on here, some Gouda, some aged cheddar, some spicy pickles. These are gluten-free crackers, some nice stuffed olives, all these wonderful little finger foods. And because of the acidity and citrus of this drink, it pairs very, very well with the meats and cheeses on a charcuterie board.
I love it. We have a comment from one of our guests that says looks inviting with an exclamation mark, which is nice. And you mentioned about presentation, and the presentation really looks bright, colorful, summery, and very inviting. Absolutely. So will you be walking that out to the backyard to any guests at all, or in your family, or?
Yes.
So the charcuterie board is it's for the taking. Maybe looks really, really great. You have another
first day.
You have, oh, is that right? Nice, nice. I love that. So we should celebrate that. And, the presentation looks amazing. You make it look so easy. So thank you for that. And you had another thing you wanted to introduce as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're going to do a second pairing tonight using one of our spirits and a very traditional, what I would call a classic cocktail. And this is one of the funnier ones, actually, because a martini, even though there are very few ingredients in a martini, martini drinkers tend to be very particular. They like their martinis a certain way. And even though there are so few ingredients, I've been in this industry for 15 plus years. This is one of the more difficult cocktails to make properly. It sounds funny, but it is. And again, that has a lot to do with martini drinkers, generally speaking, being very specific about their cocktails. There are some things about martinis I just like to touch base on. There is no such thing as a shaken martini. That is a creation of Ian Fleming. He wanted a very specific cocktail for his character James Bond when he wrote Casino Royale, and they decided to do oh shoot, I can't remember the actual name. A Vesper martini. And it is made with 2 parts gin, 1 part vodka, and 1 part Blanc Lillet. And it is shaken over ice, served with a lemon twist. That is the only martini in the world that should ever be shaken. When you get into things like a Cosmopolitan, which are traditionally shaken, that is actually just a cocktail served in a martini glass. When you get into adding more fruit ingredients, some syrups and things, you're talking about a cocktail, not a martini. I guess they're all cocktails, but not a traditional classic martini, which only should ever have really a maximum of 3 ingredients. 3 ingredients being if you're having a dirty or a perfect martini. A dirty martini, you're going to use olive juice. A perfect martini, which I don't think I've ever had one actually ordered in my entire career bartending. It involves dry vermouth and sweet vermouth. But traditionally speaking, and we're going to do a traditional dry vodka martini. We're going to pair the garnish with the food that we're pairing it with today. So I will get started on that. Your first step that you're going to take is your martini glass. And this is actually a traditional martini glass called a coupe. So the big sort of wide martini glasses are kind of a newer thing. This is what you would traditionally serve a martini in. We're going to add a couple of ice cubes to it. Now, what we want to do is just chill our glass. We want this glass to be as cold as possible. If I'm working on the bar and I have a can of soda already opened, I actually really like to chill it with soda water. I find soda water, funny enough, leaves behind less traces than tap water generally does. So it's just less impurities in your cocktail, in your martini for the finished product. So I'm going to add a couple of ice cubes, maybe 1 more ice cube, nice and cold. Soda water there, and now we're just going to let that chill for a little while. Now we're going to start on our cocktail here. I like to add 3 large square ice cubes. I'm going to be using a shaker tin today. There are traditional crystal style glasses that martinis are generally made in. Mine is downstairs on the bar in use right now. So we are going to be using the small end of our shaker tin here. I'm going to add 3 large square ice cubes. Next, we are going to add our vermouth. Generally speaking, and traditionally, most gin and vodka martinis are a dry gin or vodka martini. So we are going to be using dry vermouth. I don't like to add it to the spirit. I find that I get a better finished quality product if I add my vermouth to the ice first. This should not be sort of in the forefront of the martini. It's really an afterthought of the martini. We really want to let the spirit shine in a traditional classic martini. So what I actually really like to use an atomizer. Unfortunately, again, our atomizer is in use on our bar today. So what I've got here is just a small little glass dasher, and I'm going to add about 2 dashes of dry vermouth to my ice before I put any of my spirit in there. So 1, 2. Next, we are going to use our spirit. So today, again, we are going to be using our vodka for this one. It has to do with the pairing of our food, which I will definitely get to. But a traditional martini is a 2-ounce cocktail. So we are going to add 2 ounces of our vodka. Our vodka is soft red winter wheat based, and it's very, very neutral. It makes fantastic cocktails and martinis. So I'm going to add 2 ounces to my jigger here, and then I'm going to add that to my mixing vessel, whatever you're using. Now we get into a little bit of the more complicated aspect. What we want to do with this martini is we want to stir it to chill it and sort of infuse the vermouth into the spirit itself. But what we don't want to do is bruise the spirit or chip the ice. Again, we're trying to make a very, very simple, classic, pure cocktail when we're talking about a traditional martini. By bruising the spirit, I mean jumbling around everything that's in there. Ice chunks fall off of the ice. It adds impurities into the spirit. So we're going to be using a traditional bar spoon like this. You can use either side. I know a lot of people that use this side. I like to use the spoon side. And what I like to do is kind of get it in there, scoop it under my ice cube. I wish I could show you guys a little bit more, and just very, very slowly and steadily in one direction, whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise, you're going to stir your martini. But again, very, very gently. None of my ice cubes are moving. They are all clumped together with my spoon, moving with the spirit. So nothing in there is banging, nothing in there is chipping, nothing in there is bruising our finished cocktail. Want to stir for approximately 15 to 20 seconds. You will start to notice, if you can see this, you can start to notice the frost building up on the side of the martini here where our liquid and our ice is. And that's a good indicator that this is getting as cold as it needs to be. So once we are comfortable with the temperature, again, about 15, 20 seconds usually does it. Going to remove our spoon very gently. Try to keep everything in there. Now we are going to prepare our glass here. So we're just going to get rid of our soda water and our ice. And you can see we've got a nice sort of layer of frosting along the glass as well. So it's very nice and cool. We do want to get as much of the soda and water, whatever you're using, out of there. Again, trying to keep the impurities out of this cocktail. Next, using our Hawthorne strainer again, we're going to very, very slowly and gently pour our drink. I aim right for the middle of the glass. Just slowly let it pour and fill. You can hear the ice cubes just moved for the first time. But again, a traditional martini should be crystal clear like water. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's no ice chunks, there's no chips, there's no coloring, there's no nothing in there. It just looks like water, which is really the end goal when you get to a martini like this. Today, for a garnish, we have changed ours up a little bit. Traditionally, a martini would be garnished with either a lemon twist or an olive or 3 olives. If people want more than 1 olive, this is a cool little fact about martinis. Bartenders are superstitious. None of us will put 2 olives in a martini. It is either going to be 1 or 3 olives, always an odd number, never an even number. Funny bartending fact, don't know where it started, but it's true. But today, instead of our olives or our twist, we are going to be using a cucumber, a thin slice of our cucumber ribbon, excuse me, there's the one I'm looking for. So it's rolled nice and tightly, sliced very thin with a toothpick to keep it all together. I'm just going to add it to the middle of our cocktail just like that. And there you have a traditional dry vodka martini. The reason that we chose vodka for this cocktail is we are pairing it with our Gravlax, which is a gin-soaked smoked salmon. Now, the gentleman that makes ours is from Hamilton. He's local, and he actually uses our gin to soak his salmon. Unfortunately, it's a very small company and a very small batches that he makes it in. So if, I'm just throwing it out there, if you guys are ever coming to see us and you are intending to try our Gravlax, give us a call ahead of time just to make sure that we do have it in stock for you. But what we've got here is a beautiful bagel with some cream cheese, our Gravlax, which is our gin-soaked smoked salmon, topped with pickled onions. And we have garnished that as well with another little cucumber ribbon. Cucumber tends to go really well with salmon. The other reason that we've chose vodka for this is traditionally in places like Russia, there are salted fishes is almost always paired with a vodka. The two just complement each other very, very well. And it's a very sort of traditional pairing, which we find works excellent for us as well.
Amazing. Alex, absolutely. We have a few questions regarding presentation, and we have you for another 10 minutes, if we can steal you for another 10 minutes of your time this evening as we're preparing for our musical performance. We'd love to learn a little bit more, but in particular, how do you find some of the products was one of the questions from one of our viewers. Some of the products to prepare maybe your first or second dish, and even some of the charcuterie things as well.
Absolutely. So with our charcuterie this year, what we've done is we've tried to do everything as local as possible here at Spring Mill. So what we've done is we've reached out to local farms and local people, from the Cambridge, Kitchener, Guelph, sort of Waterloo area, and try to do as many local partnerships as possible. So what we've got here on our charcuterie board is organic pork from Three Gen Organics. That is the name of the supplier. So from 3 Gen Organics, and we really just spend a lot of time sourcing and trying samples, which is a lot of fun. A lot of the times, we get in touch with people and they usually bring us some products to try, and we use what's best for us. Again, trying to keep it as local as possible. So the way that we source is really just throwing out contacts and talking to people that are in the industry that we're looking to make a partnership with. And after we try a few, talk to a few, we find sort of what works best for us and what we think is going to represent our brand, our bar, and pair best with sort of what we're providing in the cocktail region. And that's what we sort of look for when we're sourcing food. The Gravlax is a great example of that. It's a gentleman who sort of runs the business out of his own place. It's a very, very small business, and he does everything very small batch. And before we talked to him, he was already using our gin because of the botanicals in our gin and the sea buckthorn berry that I mentioned that's in there. It's got more of a citrusy floral finish, and he loves that for soaking his salmon. So even before we partnered with him, he was already using one of our products, which just made it kind of an obvious, easy choice for us.
And do you ever do classes at all by chance? So this is kind of cool for us for the festival, and it's really neat for us kind of sitting around our own backyard and letting this happen before our eyes. Do you ever organize classes? Could someone do that? How would they go about that?
In the process of figuring out a mixology day. I've actually had a plan with Christine, who's running our events now. I'm sort of the head mixologist here. We've had a plan we've talked about it over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Out a day. Unfortunately with COVID and everything, we haven't had the time to execute some of our plans. But doing some of these digital cocktail lessons has really brought it back to our mind. So what my intention is moving forward, it probably will be after the summer. I would imagine we're probably going to start it in the fall, Christmas sort of time period. But I am going to be throwing a mixology class once a month. And it will be, the first 12 people that sign up. And we'll say, I'm not sure what day, let's call it the third Thursday of every month. And what I will do is I'll take the first 12 people that sign up. There will be a fee for the class itself, which will include a cocktail kit provided by us, which will include some of the ingredients, some of our spirits, some of our tonics, some of our simple syrups. And then what I will do is I will take everybody up here to our private event space, and I will spend a couple hours making a couple of traditional cocktails with everybody on hand. So we do have intentions for having mixology classes in the future. We just have not been able to execute them thus far. Oh, I can't hear.
We have a few moments for questions from our audience. I don't know if you can hang around for a little bit longer, if that's okay. And if anybody else wanted to pose any questions that's viewing live tonight for the Guelph District Multicultural Festival, it's a new experience for Cocktail Hour. And we're fielding any questions for our guests from Spring Mills Distillery. They prepared some lovely dishes tonight. And you mentioned the base being vodka for some, and that's coming from Russia, as you mentioned. Which is super cool to learn a little bit more about that and the salty aspect of the contrast of the two.
So the base for our vodka itself is actually a soft red winter wheat, which is sourced locally in Ontario. But the tradition of having salted fishes paired with vodka goes way, way back in places like Russia and other places like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that really is around the world, really, that the contrast of saltiness and types of liquor and such. So that's very, very cool. Any questions from our audience or techs who may be fielding and organizing our event tonight? If you're fielding any questions at all, please send them this way. We have another moment with Spring Mills Distillery as we're preparing to line up our entertainment for the rest of the evening. And how long has Spring Mills Distillery been around? I see the beautiful architecture in the background, familiar with the space. And could you tell us a little bit more about that and why?
No problem at all. We are in a building here in Guelph that was built as a mill, I believe, back in 1834, I want to say was the year. 1834, 1832, can't remember. So there's a lot of history in this building itself. There's obviously a lot of history with the Sleeman family, who owns this company as well. We opened our doors May 2019. We actually began distilling January 2019. And we started construction and sort of taken over this project back in 2016. So it took a lot of years to get everything up and ready. We use traditional Scotch whiskey making equipment here. We are one of the only distilleries, if not the only distillery, whiskey distillery in North America to use Forsyth copper pot stills. So the Forsyth family has been around in Scotland making handmade copper pot stills. I mean, this is a guy with a bag of corn and a guy with a hammer. And they make each one of these by hand. They are the absolute Rolls Royce of stills. So it actually, and they, just because you can pay for them doesn't mean that they're going to build you one. So it was a lot of back and forth between Mr. John Sleeman and sort of the head of the Forsyth family. A lot of whining and dining, a lot of trips over here and trips back over there to convince them that the products we were going to be making out of our distillery were going to be to the standard that they keep their name at over in Scotland. So one of the things that's done for us is having the best whiskey making equipment in the world also makes really good other spirits. So even though our passion is our whiskey, we do everything from grain to bottle here on site at the distillery. So nothing is outsourced whatsoever. With the vodka and the gin, we can go from grain to bottle. It takes about 6 days for a vodka and about 7 days for a gin, because the gin needs to be steeped in the botanicals for 24 hours afterwards, which gives it, you know, the wonderful gin flavors that it's got. Excuse me. We have the tallest column copper stills in North America. Our tallest one, I believe, is 54 feet, if I'm not mistaken. And between those 3 column stills, which everything's traveling through, there's 146 plates. So it doesn't mean that it's distilled 146 times, but like, for instance, like a traditional Smirnoff goes through about 10 plates. So it really creates a very, very refined product by the end of it. The vodka that we've been able to produce is one of the most neutral cocktail vodkas I've ever used in my life. It adheres to other flavors just wonderfully, and it's very, very neutral on its own. It doesn't really have a lot of that burn that you get from a lot of vodkas. And the gin, like I said already, with the botanicals that are in this, it is just a much more approachable London dry style gin. It is traditional. It is definitely the junipers there. But because of the equipment and because of the botanicals that our head distiller, Don Bellman, has discovered, we've been able to create a product that's got more of a floral citrusy finish on top of the juniper that's traditionally there. And then we've got into producing some specialty liqueurs. So this was actually the #3 specialty liqueur that we did. Number one is an allspice liqueur. It's absolutely wonderful. It's very, very clove heavy on the nose, but it's a very, very balanced follow through. Some cinnamon, some nutmeg, some other flavors in there. I actually had a gentleman describe it to me one time is it tastes like Fireball went out and got a job. And that's it has always stuck with me. I think that's fairly accurate. Our number two liqueur is a coffee liqueur using responsibly sourced Colombian dark roast coffee that we roast and press in-house here. We also add some cacao nibs to that liqueur as well. So you get hints of chocolate and sweetness coming out of it as well. And unlike a lot of other coffee-based liqueurs, there's no dairy in it. So it's a much easier product to use. You can use it. We've even paired it with whiskeys now. We're fooling around with coffee flavored Manhattans and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, you think coffee and you go, okay, well, you can put that in coffee or you can make an espresso martini and that's, you know, kind of the end of the road. It's not the case. Coffee actually goes very well with a lot of things. I don't have a lot of experience with coffee, so I'm learning as I go, but I'm finding that it's quite easy to pair coffee with a lot of other flavors, which is very surprising. And then our third one here is our Hascat Berry Liqueur. Like I said, this one is one that we partnered with Strome's Farms out in Cambridge. So another local partnership. We use their berries here. And again, from grain to bottle, soft red winter wheat takes about a week or so for this one. All of these we do in very, very small batches. All of our bottles are hand numbered. So, you know, for a spice liqueur or like a coffee liqueur, we might produce maybe 800 or 900 bottles at a time. And then it's just kind of there until it's gone. Now, originally the plan was to keep these as individual runs, but our spice liqueur and our coffee liqueur has gotten so popular that we've decided to do other runs of it as well. But we do them the same way, traditionally small batched, hand numbered. Each one is very, very individually cared for by the time it hits our shelf. And our last product that is sort of new for us is a very interesting one. Because we're passionate about whiskey here, we wanted to do something with our gin or our vodka for our whiskey fans while they were waiting. So what we have here is a Coach barrel. There's 6 of them in the world. It stands for Canadian Oak, Ash, Cherry, and Hickory. We share them with other distilleries around North America. We got ours, I believe, from a cidery last time. The reason there's only 6 of them, which I actually just recently figured out, is because cherry traditionally does not work very well for master coopers, for barrel makers, and very expensive to use. So they don't trend, you're not going to see very many barrels made with cherry wood. So these Coach barrels are very, very specific, which is the reason that we share them sort of around with other distilleries. What we've done with ours is we've aged some of our gin in it for 9 months. Comes out this beautiful, beautiful yellow color. It's got a real smoky sort of charred finish. And I get hints of grape and hints of apple probably from the cidery that was using the barrel before us. So a very neat product too, because that can never be replicated. I think we did 900 or so bottles of that. After you age something in a barrel, the char levels inside the barrel change. So if we add gin back to the same barrel, it's not going to finish the same way that it is. So this is literally just a one-off. It's very, very interesting. I have fooled around with it mixology-wise. We've decided to market it as a sipping gin more than anything. The one success I've had with it is making martinis. But as like a cocktail product, it would be like adding like a 16-year single malt scotch to a Coke. Like it's not going to do it any justice. So we're sort of marketing it as a sipping gin for our whiskey fans who are waiting for our whiskey. Yeah, and those are sort of the products that we are working with as of now.
Going to put you on the spot here really quickly. Any coffee mixology thing that you could teach us quickly as we're sitting in our backyards enjoying the weekend, and if somebody wanted to put together a really good coffee tasting type cool drink?
One of the ones I've been using lately, I'll let you in on a little secret. I've discovered that rye actually partners very well with coffee, which was kind of news to me. Wasn't really expecting, but sort of the maple flavor that you get from a traditional 100% Canadian rye pairs well with the coffee liqueur. So instead of using a traditional Manhattan would have 1 ounce of rye and a 1/2 ounce of sweet vermouth. What I've been doing is I've been adding 1 ounce of rye, a 1/4 ounce sweet vermouth, and a 1/4 ounce of our coffee liqueur. and then adding a couple of dashes of Angostura bitters and a nice bourbon soaked cherry. Stir that up with a couple of ice cubes, and you have a coffee Manhattan, which is a pretty amazing drink. I can guarantee if you're looking for something to show some people, they've never seen this before. So definitely one to think about. Again, I'm just sort of figuring out the recipe myself as I go, but it has turned out very nice. And everybody that I've sort of had try this cocktail so far seems to really, really like it. So yeah, if you want to try something different, there's always, you know, the traditional vodka, coffee, liqueur, martini. You know, you can do the, or with milk, you can shake it up, get it nice and frothy. You know, you can add it to cider. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But if you want to try something different, try rye.
That's appreciated. Folks, well, shout out to Spring Mills Distillery. And if people wanted to find you, where are you located?
We are 43 Arthur Street South, Guelph, Ontario.
Ontario.
Give us a call. We just opened our patio for the first time in a long time today. Unfortunately, just like everybody else, we're only able to do outdoor service right now. And weekends are booking up very, very fast. But if you're interested, come by, see us, have a cocktail. I'm here most days, and everybody else that's here, except for maybe some of the newer staff, is just as knowledgeable and friendly and outgoing as I am. So what we are focused on guest engagement and experience here at Spring Mill Distillery, because we're not a traditional bar. Our bar is part of our brand. Our bar is what we expect, is what we want to showcase with our products. So again, we do everything very, very old school here. I juice all the lemons and limes by hand. I do all of the simple syrups. I hand press them in-house. We don't buy anything like that. Everything that we're using behind the bar is traditional sort of old school style cocktails. If you order a whiskey sour here, it's going to have an egg white in it. We do a lot of smoked cocktails as well, something that I've just started experimenting with as well. But yeah, check out our website, check out our products. Most of them are available in most LCBOs now across Ontario. And if you're ever in the area, please come by and see us, and we'll have a chat and try a drink.
Wow. We're getting a thank you from one of our audience members to say thank you for highlighting your products, and really thank you for joining us tonight and for kickstarting the Friday evening of the 35th Annual Guelph and District Multicultural Festival. We want to shout out to Spring Mills Distillery. We're wrapping up our segment of cocktail hour ish, and thank you for joining us and educating us along the way. We'll be sure to see you at Spring Mills Distillery and stop by.
Guys, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully I'll see you all soon.